Now, next one to the right of parking component here is the building pad. Okay. Now, what a building pad does is if we look at this again in 3D, all right, if we kind of zoomed in and looked through the windows, right, as you can see that we actually have topography kind of spilling out and over through our building, right? So if we clicked on a couple of the objects here, just hit them temporarily, right, we can see we have, the topography going and kind of swooping straight through our building, right? Look at it in 3D, you can see what I'm talking about there, all right? What you'll also notice is that, if you wanted to do something like a basement, right, is you're going to have the topography going right through your basement. So if you cut that in a section view, right, it's going to look like you have earth basically going straight through your whole basement, okay? And the way that we get away from that, all right, and kind of cut out a space for our building, right, is by using a building pad, all right? So if we go back to our site plan here, okay, is we're going to use the building pad tool. And what the building pad tool does, all right, is it's drawn exactly like a floor, okay, but what it's going to do is it's either going to raise or lower the section of topography, right, in that area that you define, and it's going to basically level it off. So if I go ahead and I tell it I want this at level 1, all right, and I want to drop it down, let's say my slab, or, my bottom floor there is, 1 foot thick. So if I said -1 foot thick, right, so that way it goes and this pad is going to go and sit just underneath my bottom floor there, all right. Is what it's going to do is if you go into your type settings, all right, you'll notice that, again, just like a regular floor, all right, you can select elements or layers rather, select materials, right, give it a thickness. Generally speaking is if you have a basement, all right, and you're working with it, is a lot of times I will use this pad as kind of the basement floor, all right, and just kind of make this concrete and then use this as your basement floor. That way you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone with it. All right, so you'll have your concrete floor on the bottom, plus this cuts out the topography. All right, but what you can also do is do the method I'm doing here, right, is if you want to have a floor there instead of just using the pad as the bottom floor to cut out the geometry for the topography, is I'm going to change this thickness to something very, very small, let's say like 1/8 of an inch, or you can even go smaller, right? So that way when you go and look at this in plan view, you can't really notice this layer here. All right, so if I hit OK, all right, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to trace all the way around this. All right, so all the way around the outside edge of my building. Here, okay. Hit the check mark. Okay, so that's at -1. We look at it in 3D now. All right, you can now see what it does in 3D. So Revit's gone when that building pad has cut out an area of the topography for us, all right? And so now that's no longer overlapping into our building, all right? If you look at it from underneath, you can see what it did there, all right? It basically offset itself down underneath, all right? And again, you can set that building pad to whatever height you're looking for, all right? So that way it just goes and kind of offsets itself, all right? Now, you don't necessarily need to do it at -1 foot. If I set this up to something like 10, all right, you can see what it does. It brings it up as opposed to down, all right? So you don't necessarily need to just bring it down to cut out. You can bring it up, and then it also will bring the topography up to you. Okay, so just kind of as a note, you can think of that there. All right, so I'll do that. So I had it at 1 foot. Okay, and so that's how you can cut geometry out so it's not overflowing into your building. All right. All right, so we've gone and actually cut a nice little section out of our topography, right? And again, if you have a basement and you're using topography, is that's what you need to do there as well, is use that building pad, all right, to cut a little section out of the topography for your building. Okay. Now you notice that you have split surface and merge surface, all right, and you have subregion. Okay. What split surface does is exactly like it sounds. All right. If you're in your site plan, select split surface. Okay. You can select this surface here. Is what you can do is actually draw, a line like this, right, to split the surface up. Okay. Now, with split surface, you just need to draw basically a line if you want to split it directly on a line. Okay, and hit the check mark, and what Revit does is it splits the surface into two pieces. All right, so that this piece right here can be edited on its own. This piece over here can be edited on its own. All right, what you can do afterwards, all right, if you want them back, you can do merge surface, select the two of them. Okay. Okay, so that merges them right back into one. Okay, take note though, is if you do split a surface in half, right, if for some reason you go and you change the material from the two, right, so let's say if the one on the left here I changed it from dirt, the one on the right I selected asphalt or something like that. All right, when you merge the surfaces back together, is the first surface that you click to merge, all right, is going to overpower the material on the second material, okay, or the second surface. So if the one on the left is one material, the one on the right is a different material, right? When you merge them back together, whatever material is on the surface that's clicked first, all right, is going to be change itself to material for all of it. Okay, and so again, that's what's nice. That's something you can do with the split surface feature. All right, is kind of split things in two. What I like to do about it as well is, like I was saying, is kind of build yourself a surface that's bigger than you need. All right, is what you can do afterwards to kind of clean this up so you don't have, this awkward looking edge to it. Is if you use the split surface tool, all right, and select something, say the surface here, is what I usually like to do is once you have the building and the areas kind of fixed to the size that you want to, right, is what you can do is actually draw, say, a rectangle like this, all right, and split the surface out like this. So if you hit the check mark, all right, it now holds two different surfaces. You can now select the outside edge, hit delete, all right, and it leaves you with a nice rectangular or square kind of a topography so that it looks better on drawings, right? So that's more or less the reason why you would want to do it. Some people don't like to have kind of the site, have kind of undefined edges like this, all right? Now, the next tool over, the subregion, right, what we can use this for is it does something similar to the split surface, all right? But what the subregion does is it allows you to define a section of your topography, all right, as a subregion, and then it allows you to change that material, all right? But what's nice about the subregion tool is that it allows you to select an area and define it as a different material. So like, let's say if we wanted to draw a walkway out here, all right, if you were to select subregion, okay? Now the thing with subregions is you want to make sure that you draw kind of a full shape, okay? Let's say that rectangle there. All right, and under material, do we have any sort of asphalt? We have asphalt shingle, but okay, let's say we just do a concrete. Okay, hit OK. All right. Okay, and so what we can do is if you hit the check mark now, so you'll see that Revit kind of breaks this out into a different piece. All right, and when we look at it in 3D, right, you'll notice that it changes the material for that one single spot, right? But as I was saying, what's nice is that with this subregion, what you can do is if this region is drawn up on the edges, all right, where you actually change elevation. So let's say, all right, we have a subregion and we drew it, let's say we have a walkway going up the edge like this, okay. What it does is it allows you to draw and define different areas as different materials, all right, but it doesn't change the slope, right? So the slope always follows whatever the topography is already doing, right? All it's doing is taking a section and letting you change the material for it, right? So again, if you want to do kind of a walkway or you're drawing, full site out here and you want to change the area for what's going to be the street or anything like that, all right, is you can use the subregion tool, and that allows you to do that. Okay. So the next tool's over here. So graded region we're not going to get into because we're not talking about phasing. All right, but property line, if you were in your site view, all right, property lines are going to be 2D lines that you can draw, but essentially you can draw out your property line, all right, if you're kind of concerned with, um, you know, different aspects of your building that have to do with kind of surrounding neighbors and things like that. All right, but this is where you can find it here, your property line. Okay, create by sketching or by getting very specific with different distances and bearings. All right, we'll leave that alone for now. Okay, well, with your topography here, all right, aside from splitting and subregions and so on, all right, that's pretty much it with your topography. All right, there's not a whole lot to it. Again, just making sure that when you're doing your topography, as you understand the way that the points work, right, and the elevations for it. Okay, site components, like I said, if you select these, all right, you'll probably have some trees loaded in here by default. Okay, so you can place some trees in here. All right, what's nice with Revit and any of the elements that you load into Revit, not just trees, but if they're the RPC trees, all right, or you'll find RPC people or cars or things like that, what it is, all right, is if you look at them in 3D, all right, is they kind of look like planar, all right, and kind of 2D flat planes. All right, but what's nice with them with the RPCs is they're special families, so that once you render this, all right, these will actually turn into lifelike looking trees. All right, if you were to change this view here to realistic, all right, you'll see that those trees will show up as realistic looking trees. All right. So again, those happen to be the specific RPC trees. Okay. All right, but again, those are the site components. Okay, those are trees that happen to be loaded in. If you go in here, I think if you scroll down the site, all right, you have parking, utilities, logistics, things like that. All right, so different things that you can load in place, you know, within your model. Okay, but those work the same way as any of your furniture does too. All right.